It's a little thing we call Football Friday. Welcome on up inside. We welcome the CFL on TSN's Jim Barker, five-time Grey Cup champion, a college football veteran of the coaching wars. Coach, I don't know if you saw, we were talking about before the break, the crazy fair catch free kick last night. What was it like as a coach, having to know all of the rules, in the States, and then you come to Canada and got to do the same thing? Must have been very stressful.
No, it wasn't really. And it was so interesting watching that game as a coach, because as soon as Peyton threw the ball on second down, that's when the light clicked on for Harbaugh. Then he tried to run it on third down. And as soon as Harbaugh called that timeout, that sinking feeling you get as a coach, I felt it for Sean Payton, because I know he knew the rule. Like I say, it did happen. It was 48 years ago, but I do remember it. And it's one of those things you talk about and you hear about. But I guarantee you, Sean Payton knew it. As soon as he ran the ball and Harbaugh called timeout, he got that, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. And then you put yourself in. I mean, still the punt should have been fine if they don't. If they don't get the penalty. The penalty gives them the opportunity. So again, it was one of those rare situations. But when you're bringing the ball out at the end of the half, timeouts and how you use the clock, and obviously Sean Payton made a huge mistake throwing the ball from deep in his end, stopping the clock, which then allowed them to take the timeout, have 8 seconds left, force them to punt. And again, they have a really good. San Diego has a really good return, or LA has a really good. They'll always be the San Diego Chargers to me. They have a real good returner, and they were probably thinking they could return it, but the guy punted it high enough. But then the guy runs into him and takes a really dumb penalty, and it was great. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. When you talk to your NFL guys, I would love to know this: did they know before the season started, when they scheduled their Saturday games that they always schedule after the Army-Navy game, that they were going to be going against a college football playoff? Because they are head-to-head against college football playoff Saturday afternoon from 12 till 9 o'clock at night. You're going to have people. I mean, you know what March Madness is like? That's what I think that the NCAA is hoping happens with this college football playoff. And if so, the NFL ratings, they got 2 good games. They have the Texans and the Chiefs, and they have the Ravens and the Steelers. I mean, those are great games. But are you going to rather watch that than watch these college games? I mean, these college games with the championship on the line, I'd love to know if the NFL knew it, or if it was like one of those, oh, no, you know what's going to happen. They're playing their 3 games, and we got 2 games going.
Well, honestly, I don't think they care. This is the way the NFL's operating now, like moving in on Christmas Day, streaming on Netflix, now the Black Friday game. I legit don't think they care. I guess we'll find out what the ratings come out.
You'll find out.
Weekend,
you'll
right?
find out next year. You'll find out next year.
Yeah, if they change it,
see
exactly.
If they schedule games next year.
Coach, in your mind, who is the NFL Coach of the Year right now if you were voting?
Oh, boy. That's a tough question. I mean, I would probably give it, to the Buffalo Bills guy. I just think that he's done a fantastic job keeping that thing together, and they're in great position. Harbaugh obviously would be a vote, because they've done a fantastic job turning that thing around and changing a whole mentality of an organization. They've just had a losing ever since Alex Spanos, and they just haven't been able to get over that losing mentality. And Harbaugh's brought that physical, we're going to beat the hell out of this team mentality that you have to have, that I think you're seeing, even in the CFL, they're talking about it now, that teams have to be more physical in the people they're signing and things like that. But and again, you can't say Andy Reid, because they haven't been that great, but they're 13-1, and they're the defending champions. And how tough can that be? And they keep losing players. And I guess as long as they have Patrick Mahomes, That's the key. And so, again, I'm a little biased on those things. I know people don't like to give it to the same guy, but 13-1, when you're in that situation he's been in and the people he's had to go through, and he just finds ways to win games at the end, I'd throw Andy Reid's name in there too.
It's an awesome debate, and people have a different definition of what it is. Like, who did the best job of coaching? Well, it's the NFL. See, if all the coaches are good. So what's your definition of who did a great job? I see what you're saying, right? But it looks like Harbaugh's taken a non-playoff team to the playoffs. Look at what Sean Payton's doing in Denver. They're all great coaches. So I don't assume you follow soccer. I really don't. But Lionel Messi won the MVP of MLS, plays for Miami. He only played half the games.
Yeah, but if you would have asked, Rod, if you'd have asked me last week who's going to win the MVP in MLS, I would have said Lionel Messi, because he's the only guy that I know in the whole league.
Well, you won it, so you don't won a trivia contest there. Okay, well, crazy, well, not as crazy week in the CFL. I'm trying to think of other than Brent Munson going to Hamilton.
How about Cody? How about Cody?
The trade,
and the trade between, I mean, I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are on that, because I know you're close with Cody, and I found it to be a fascinating trade. I thought it was, when I was in Toronto, we had Chad Owens. This is kind of the closest thing, and Chad Owens was taking a big pay cut, and he took a big pay cut and went to Hamilton, which he could do. He could go somewhere else. He could not have played in the same city with that big pay cut. It just wouldn't have worked. It's kind of exactly with both of these quarterbacks. With Davis Alexander coming in, even though Cody accepts that he's the number 2, and it still creates a problem in a division. You completely erase that. Same thing with McLeod Bethel Thompson. I mean, he didn't win a lot of games for Edmonton, but he was still a leader. And a lot of people in that locker room look up to him. And you eliminate those issues by making this trade. Both teams. I thought it was a brilliant trade by both teams. I mean, it gives them both experienced backup quarterbacks that will want to be there. I'm sure that Danny talked to Farrell Elliott, McLeod's agent, and they got a deal worked out before they made this deal. But to me, it was a great deal for the league, because keeping those guys in the league, McLeod and Cody, do nothing but make us better. When you're looking at backup quarterbacks that are Grey Cup winners, that's fantastic. And so I was excited to see the trade. I thought, wow, it's genius. And I hadn't even thought about it. I've thought about what are they going to do with Cody, and what are they going to do with Mac, and it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, people seem to say that Edmonton was going to be the landing spot. How, I didn't know it was going to have to be via trade. What I thought initially, Jim, was if you're going to back up at Edmonton, why don't you just back up at Montreal? But Cody didn't want to stay in Montreal for the reasons you've said. So it was time for a change. And the other thing is, people ask, how's he doing? Well, Jim, listen, you've been around, I've been around. We've been fired. The more it happens, the more desensitized you get. It's like, whatever, what's next? And that's kind of where Cody's at now. He's been kicked so many times. He's, okay, what's next? So he's going to Edmonton, and I hope for the best for him and what's going on in Edmonton, which, by the way, look at what's going on in Hamilton. I talked to not Chris Jones, but the Jones crew, like it's a team of people. He's not going to be in Hamilton. And Brent Monson's there. It's a better fit for the Ticats, is what I hear. What do you hear?
Well, I talked to Chris, and he was hoping to go back, but they chose to go in a different direction. And again, the Brent Monson thing, when it didn't work out with Toronto, and something people don't know, Chris Jones actually brought Brent Monson to Calgary. Back in 2008, we hired Chris on John Huffnagel's first staff, and Brent Monson came with him, had gotten to know him, and Brent Monson came in as a young volunteer guy. And so him going to Hamilton was interesting for me, because I know how close Scott and Chris Jones are. And when Chris said, he wants to coach again, it just wasn't going to happen in Hamilton for whatever the reasons, and we didn't go into why, but he does want to coach again, and it's just he's going to have to be patient, and it's kind of like McLeod. Okay, now McLeod he can go to Montreal as a backup and be the backup, and if Davis Alexander goes through the year, doesn't get hurt and whatever, he doesn't play. But if McLeod maybe takes a little bit of a brave pill, and McLeod can do it. He's one that can do it because his wife has a phenomenal job as a writer in Hollywood, and so he could do it. Is wait, and as soon as that starting quarterback goes down, his value goes sky high. Now, I'm sure Farrell will work it out so that if Davis Alexander gets hurt, his value will go sky high. But that's one quarterback as opposed to having 8 different possibilities. And we all saw how many guys made it through the season this year. Not very many. I think there's value sometimes. And it goes the same thing with coaches. And I talked to Chris a little about this. There becomes value when a team struggles early and they know there's a Chris Jones out there, that his value now goes up because when they come after him, it's a different deal. And so again, he's done very well for himself. He's got apartments down in Tennessee that he owns, that during his time in the NFL, he went and took care of himself and his family. And so for him, it's not a rush that he has. He loves coaching. He loves coaching, but he's right now going to sit tight and see what happens. And but sometimes you have to be patient. And that's a hard thing. It's a hard thing, but players are the same thing. I talked to Sean Lemon about it a couple of years ago, that be patient, because when the team comes after you, you're going to become very valuable to them. And he actually did it, and he became very valuable to Montreal. So the longer you're in the league and the more you establish yourself, again, there comes that point when you're going to take a pay cut. Now, how much a pay cut you take and whether or not you say, you know what, I'd rather wait and see what happens, because you know that somebody's going to get hurt. And McLeod was going to be the first call on 8 different teams. Just about, I can't think of a team that has a backup that they would prefer over Mac. And if he's just there working out, getting ready, he could fit into any place in the entire league. But that's, I'm sure they'll get a deal done that they're happy with, and have a little security and know he's going to Montreal.
You've always been a very good speaker, but you're really getting a handle on this media thing. You said it far more eloquently than I could have about Jones. I didn't know how to say it. As it was put to me, he loves to do personnel. He's been the boss. He's done it all. It's kind of hard for him to go back and be the defensive coordinator and just stay in your lane.
I disagree with that.
That's what I was told,
there, Rod. No, and I think
I'm not saying it. I'm reporting what I was told. Repeating what I was told.
He loves coaching, period. I mean, the personnel stuff, he loves doing that stuff on the side. But where he's at home, again, being the head coach in Edmonton was never a thing that I think he loved doing. Everybody wants to be the boss and things like that. But like myself, I was at my happiest when my professional happiness, just throw everything else out the window, when I was an offensive coordinator and I had a defensive head coach, Don Matthews and Al Luganbill. That's when I was my happiest. It was absolutely the best of times because I got to just coach offense. And I think Chris Jones is at his best when he can just coach defense. And I think he's at his best because he's at his happiest. He doesn't have to worry about all those other things. And does he like to go look at players and be out on the road? Yeah, he does. But I think he loves coaching, and he's still young, and he's going to get another opportunity. Again, for me, I don't have that desire anymore to go back to the daily grind of coaching and coordinating an offense and doing that. I just don't see where that would be good for me. He's 10 years younger than me, so for him it's a natural deal for him. So again, I think that we throw too much into he needs to run the show and he needs to do. It's like Bill Belichick. We talked about it last week. people who think Bill Belichick needs to run everything, they don't understand, because Bill Belichick loves coaching football, period. That's what he loves. Now, get him players, find people to get him players and do that, but they're all chess pieces on the chessboard. And that's what coaches thrive on, is how can I get the most out of my chess pieces so I can take your chess pieces over? And that is the beauty of why we get into coaching is, it's that type of chess game, and it's a daily, and your job depends on it, and everybody evaluates you every week. There's a buzz to that, Rod.
Sure. And that's why there's such a huge difference between broadcasting and coaching. And you got into it. Belichick was in it briefly, but I know you all want to coach. You're not broadcasters, and we're not coaches. People like to pretend they are in this business. They're not. All right, Coach. Merry Christmas. Thanks for this. We'll see you in the new year.
All right. Okay. You have a great holiday season down. Are you staying down in Florida the whole time?
Absolutely. Home for the holidays.
Well,
Florida, USA.
In Toronto, we have a white Christmas. We have a white Christmas here in Toronto.
Enjoy.
I woke up this morning, snow on the ground.
Enjoy it for me, Coach. Thank you.
All right.
The CFL on TSN's Jim Barker.